Good afternoon. I will call the January 13th meeting of the Metro Blue Ribbon Commission to order. The chair detects a quorum so that we may proceed. The first item, there's a notice of appeal rights, which is published in the agenda, that is also on the website, and that we don't make any decisions that are determinative of anything, but if we did, pursuant to the provisions of the Metro Code, we please take notice that decisions may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under common law writ of certiorari. That sounds really fun. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the Commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. First item of business is approval of the draft minutes from the December 12th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Any corrections or amendments? Seeing none, all in favor of approval of the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, like sign. Second, I sent out a copy, just because timing's everything, and I was asking Kristen Wilson from the mayor's office to discuss where we head and what we're doing, and an important piece of information that came out today I asked that was that the budget message came out from the mayor and from Kristen and from Kevin Crumbo that was an update and a change in procedure. I'd asked her to come and explain that, because it also does impact our timeline, which was already somewhat tight, and also asked Councilmember Mendez, as chair of the Budget Committee, to have any observations that he has on this. Also, obviously, Vice Mayor Schulman, any wisdom or comments would be welcome.
Did you say wisdom?
Yes. Well, it would be really. Excuse. Somebody's going to go back and look at this tape. But at any rate, you have to make it a little.
That's the first time you've ever said wisdom in my name in the same sentence.
That's probably true.
Thank you.
You're welcome. With that, Kristen, you want to outline or help put some context around the budget message and
Sure.
what it is,
Happy
how it affects
to.
what we do.
Happy to. Before I get to the timeline, one of the things I'll say is, there's an annual process already that Metro goes through that is relatively fine-tuned, has a set of systems behind it. Hyperion has a set of processes and a calendar behind it, and that really was a starting basis. But as I've told a lot of our departments, while there's sort of a form piece that will look familiar to many of them, the content within it is going to be shifting around, compressing to some degree, and we'll get to that on the timeline, and shifting a bit. So I said to everyone, please, keep your radars open and get into your systems early and look at what we're actually asking of you pretty early, because some of it's going to require a fair amount of work, both and on an accelerated time frame in the departments themselves. Importantly, as we go into this budget process, typically the departments are asked to work off of the operating baseline, and then they put in budget modification requests off of that baseline. In this case, where we have set the baseline is lower than where departments have been used to being set in the past. What we did is all the departments have been working off of budgeted target savings, which I think were even recognized in the Blue Ribbon Commission report in and of itself for several years now. And I think in the process they had come through kind of an agreement with council and with the public about what the budget was, and then they would quickly over the summer kind of come back around and have these budgeted target savings that were occurring. Great fiscal tool for managing expenses, no knock on that, but I think when you've done it for several years, in my mind, as I told the departments, let's just call a spade and start where you're actually operating at. What that means is we will start off with a baseline where we can actually communicate if we did nothing. this is actually what's gonna happen to services across Metro. And for many cases, I don't think they're gonna be the scenarios we want. But at least it gives us a true baseline as to where we've been operating today versus trying to set an expectation here and then behind the scenes trying to manage through that. So that's number one, is that we have an operating baseline that absorbs all these targeted savings. And what it will do is it'll make the kind of picture of what the budget year could look like if we did nothing look quite severe. But it also forces all the departments to really kind of communicate what that means for their service delivery and for where our expectations would be if we ended up there. When you have that baseline, then what we're doing then next is working with the departments to then put in, instead of budget modifications as a spreadsheet activity, instead of what I'm calling investment requests, where they have to cost benefit justify the things that they're asking to do above and beyond that baseline. So this isn't true based budgeting, but this is actually a modification of that concept where you will understand off of that fairly restricted baseline what they're asking for and what, as a public, we would get from that. We're going to take all of those and obviously go through a prioritization process. We've articulated the mayor's priorities in that budget memo that you all have. I'm happy to go through those, but I think there's been a lot of attention and press to those already. In those articulations of kind of the justifications, our new director of performance management is going to work with the departments to try to really size the impact. Welcome, Talia. Come on in.
Hey, come on in, Talia.
Staff.
Yeah.
Sit next to me around the table.
here.
And do we know how that director is going to work with us, or how are they going to work with him?
Well, he's here and he's been here for, it's actually the last meeting we had was his very first day with Metro, I believe.
Correct.
Yeah, we are
hi.
day.
Welcome.
Yes, and so he's primarily, I mean, he's a one-man show at the moment, building out a couple other team members, but we will have him very intensively focused with the departments for a period of time if you don't mind. So I don't know how much he'd be working with the commission on its current task to do best practice work on kind of tourism economy and tourism revenues. But I think as we come out of that period of work, I think there's going to be some great potential for us to talk about that for the next phase. We are going to bring together all these investment requests, work through those decisions, do the sausage making that happens out of the mayor's office in partnership with finance and all of the administration, and then ultimately do that to deliver a budget to council, the mayor's proposed budget, by no later than May 31st, or March 31st rather, sorry, March 31st. This keeps us on a committed timeline with Chair Mendez for council to have its full 2 months to look at the budget, but then also puts us in place to get the budget to the comptroller of the state of Tennessee by no later than May 31st, which was an agreement we made with him and his staff to give them some additional time to review our budget this year. So key dates are by March 31st, the mayor's office work will be completing, hopefully a little bit before that, or I'll look very sleepless. And then by May 31st, council's work in partnership, hopefully with the administration, will be completed as well. What that means for this commission and the task before it in understanding and thinking about tourism economy and tourism revenues, I think ideally you would think about those as two pretty critical deadlines to be well in front of. Maybe at that point I'll just pause and let us contemplate that a little bit further.
When will we start meeting with the different departments, the various departments, and looking at their budgets? For instance, the school system and
the month of February. I mean, we're already having process conversations. I mean, we had a kickoff internally with most of our major departments late last week. We're going to do some meetings with the school system already, so process oriented. But I mean, we're talking about the priorities already, so you can't help but to lead into questions already from them.
yeah.
Will those be public meetings as they have sometimes been in the past or not? I don't
At
remember.
this point in time, they are not
Okay.
going to be public meetings. That is part of the accelerated process.
That's fine, I just didn't know. when I think about a cost-benefit analysis, is there, you had some examples in the memo. Is there a discipline or a format? Because as I think about what this committee also does, maybe it may not be, again, focusing on tourism. I think we still got, Emily's, I'm sorry, for those who, for anyone who might listen, Emily Evans has taken that on as an area of focus, but due to some personal reasons, she's unable to be here today. She did send a memo that kind of outlined her direction on that. I included that in the packet that went out to everyone. And I've been trying to give her some space, but I think we will then, hopefully by the next meeting at the end of this month, have some more meat, if you will, to put on the bones of how that can proceed. Because I think we have to, under this timeline,
Exactly right.
we've got to be kind of heading directionally what needs to be done at that point, so we can have any input into the process this year. But do you have anything that you would say is I mean, when I think of cost, one of the things that we heard last year, just to focus on tourism for a moment, was that there was no, at this point, at that point, cost study of the individual events downtown that told us exactly. I think there are payments that are made sometimes that go back and forth that are approximations of what someone assumes a special event costs, right? I think that the CVC does that. I think there are others who may, the events committee fund does some of that. Again, this will be something Emily will be able to kind of elucidate. But we still don't have a budget study that says, well, this is what the police spend on overtime to serve downtown every year that I know of. If maybe it does exist and I'm unaware, or fire, or public works, or they're just the different components that we know are costs that could be defined and attributed back to the revenues that tourism generates. Again, I think there's just a lot of general approach on it, but nothing that is specific enough to be able to give you the knowledge you might want. Do we know where that, if any of that exists? Have you seen any of that in your initial work?
We've done some work to look at some of the special events over time, if that's
Right.
what you're asking about, and the specific events. Going forward, for example, when we have requests right now, we're not in a posture to be able to fund most of the overtime commitments that would come out of our public safety departments on that, and so we're proactively sizing those in advance and trying to make sure that all of our costs get covered by other parties where appropriate, right?
So on a going forward basis, we can do that,
Yes.
just at least as it attaches to an individualized event. But then there's just the ongoing additional cost, if you will, that comes from operating a very popular tourism zone like we have downtown, right?
Yes.
That's that wouldn't necessarily, that's just kind of buried, I think, in the budgets, right? I mean, it just kind of exists down inside the police budget or the public works budget.
Are you asking, do we know what our operational costs are, for example, for the precinct, central
Yes, well,
precinct
that'd be
that
one way to
has
look at it. Yes,
downtown?
right.
I mean, we can isolate out a lot of those. Have we done that holistically across all of our departments? Not to my knowledge.
Okay.
Not to my knowledge.
So, Mr. Chairman, are you asking, take New Year's Eve,
Right.
the program down here. So we knew that particularly New Year's Eve, we got a memo from the police department that said there were going to be hundreds of officers extra on duty.
Right.
I would guess both at the Bicentennial Mall where the New Year's Eve celebration was, but also just downtown.
Right, sure.
So are we at the point yet where you can actually kind of figure out, okay, so what was the cost of the overall event, both in terms of extra security, anything else that was going on, the cost of public works to set up, and was it all taken care of by whatever Convention and Visitors Bureau? Was it all handled, or was there extra expense that went in on behalf of
We
it?
can break that down. I mean, we know what our staffing plans were for security. Now, I guess the question is how deep do we go on that, right? Is it just police and OEM fire, for example, or public works and other departments end up kind of getting touched by either in a primary role or a secondary role? So I think it's how far do we go on that? I'm not sure we have kind of the net cast across every single thing that got touched in some way. You know, if law got asked a question, to do an analysis around that. But I think the primary delivery side of it all in public safety, yes, we're in a position to be able to get our arms around that.
Yes, sir.
I had heard the question a little bit differently, and so I'm
Please.
just asking.
Yeah, thank
I
you.
was hearing it to be more like I walked here from the Pinnacle building, and it's a random Monday, and there's a bunch of tourists running around, which is awesome. I was hearing the question be more about just the baseline as not.
Right.
That
the
it would be
events.
it should be relatively easy to figure out special events, but that's what I thought you were
Yes,
asking.
that is what I'm asking, because I think if there is funding available, well, first off, we need to know what the cost is, and then we need to put it up against the obligations that we know they have, or debt service and other things. And then figure out, is there a way then that supports the overall downtown ongoing tourism structure? And then the special events are a special event, right? But there is just an ongoing base cost within that I would hope we could define in some way. And again, and then have some at least start towards. Maybe it's in the budget, put together the budget. There's a tracking note, if you will, or a way to define it as it's being put together. You mentioned the central precinct. That's one. I assume Public Works has certain routes and other supports that they know are done in the tourism. If you want to stick with the tourism development zone or whatever, however you want to kind of define it, that would if we're making money off the tourism development zone, then it ought to be. You could make an argument then that you ought to just stick with that as a definition for where services are delivered.
Okay. I think that's something we can explore doing for sure. Like I said, I think in many cases it exists, we just haven't compiled
Right,
it.
right.
And then I think when you get further back into some of the indirect departments, that's where it'll get a little bit more challenging if we can stick to more direct deliveries.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. The only thing that I keep having in mind with something like that, though, is that bleeds over to a whole bunch of metrics. I'm sure right now there's more police officers per square block downtown than there are anywhere else in the city right now. But I also assume the cash registers ring in at a faster rate in downtown than anywhere else in the city right now. And if you're gonna start measuring the baseline cost of supporting the tourism industry, then is it relatively more expensive to compared to Green Hills or Rivergate or somewhere else? Because I could imagine all sorts of results with the numbers. It could be that it's still a tremendous benefit compared to anywhere else in the city with the cost. So I'd want to not just focus on what the cost is, but also what the
Revenue generated. I mean, again, if we know what we know when in Emily's memo, she talks about the revenue sources that exist.
To be clear also, our operational alignment is off of different demand generators. For
Right.
police, as they go through and think through kind of their resourcing, it is very much driven by a crime analysis, right, in terms of the resourcing and the needs that spread across that. So I want to make sure that there isn't a misunderstanding that the cash register
Right.
drives those decisions.
But definitely the events, that's it. Should be a
Yeah.
pretty easy thing. On
Yeah.
a normal
Yeah.
Saturday, you have this, and on the event Saturday, you have this expense. But I think for us to tout we're making X alpha of tourism, we also have to make sure that all the costs related to that are compared, or it's a false number. So
And if I may,
Yes, ma'am.
I'm thinking in one other area here, foot traffic from downtown, for instance, crossing the bridge into East Nashville, 5 points. Well, it's beginning to stretch even further on up Gallatin Road, and the things that are in the plan in order to upgrade as you move on out into the Madison area. Not just a foot traffic, but, just transportation.
Yeah.
Getting those individuals from point A to point B. And we're seeing more and more individuals walking through neighborhoods and that kind of thing. More and more restaurants that are opening. And those that are already there are in the process of expanding. So when we look at that, we're looking at, okay, the next thing will be, and which is already happening in East Nashville, more homes are being built. More of the tall and skinnies. I don't know how many more we're going to be able to accommodate, but that sort of thing is something that we have to really keep on the radar and not forget that there's a cost benefit and what kind of revenue will be required in order to help make that run a little bit more smoothly.
Good point.
So, Chairman Mendez, you now have this timeline to address for what you have to do. How would you like the commission to consider kind of the work it does and adjustments to how this will happen?
Yeah, so just a little bit about an outline of what I've got in mind for the council timeframe, and then talk about how the commission fits in. First, I want to thank the administration again. They've been very communicative in what their plans are with me, and that's put me in a position where hopefully by the end of the week I'll get a tentative schedule out to the council for meeting dates through the months of April and May for the budget process. On the idea of moving the process forward a month, I want to be clear what I've told the administration and other council members is that we're going to do our best to get it done in the accelerated timeline. Council hasn't committed to the comptroller. I've committed to try really hard, and I wanted to make sure that we had the council had the same normal 2 months for formal meetings that we have in other years, and the administration and department heads are accommodating that and taking the squeeze out of their time frame as opposed to the public's time frame through the council. And so I'm committed to giving it our best shot at getting done in the time allotted. In very broad strokes, we've heard the budget will be proposed on March 31. Through late February and early March, I intend to have a series of public meetings around the county. I've talked to the vice mayor, who's going to help me get those organized, and my committee vice chair, Councilmember Toombs. And we're looking at 4 or 5 dates around the county, late February, early March, where we would make a presentation and open up to questions to just get people talking about the same things that a lot of people have been talking about in City Hall. And then in April and May, we're going to conduct the process very similarly to previous years, but we've got no choice but to streamline the normal departmental meetings that we have. And I don't have a firm schedule at all yet, but I'm looking at the idea that some 80-90% of the budget is really just a handful of departments, and we're going to make sure to talk to those, and some of the smaller budgeted departments we may not talk to. I think I'm going to develop a set of questions to give each department so they'd all provide the same answers. But we're not going to conduct a hearing for every department because that's not the best use of time. We also have to work the capital improvements budget into this. The $64 million question, maybe the $150 million question is what's going to happen with the property tax rate. And I'm telegraphing to everybody who will listen that a rate increase is inevitable. And it's really just a matter of how much the property tax rate is going to increase in this year's budget. I'm trying to set up the process, including those community meetings in February and March, to basically accommodate answering the question of how much is appropriate, given what we need to do as a government. As far as the commission goes, the council's work really doesn't start until we get the budget on March 31st. And so from my perspective, that really by the time we get to mid-April is we need to know whatever the commission has to offer. And obviously, I think the administration probably needs to know before that. So I think that's what drives action.
So really, again, back to the beginning of March, have some direction, and by mid-March, have a pretty concrete sense of what it is we would want to do that we would give to the administration for inclusion in the budget. But spring it on, that's probably not the best approach. As part of the process, that's just my own experience. Okay, all right. Well, I hope that's helpful to everyone, and it gives us a sense of what we can do, what we have to do. What I also then, and again, we will work with Emily to put some structure on it for next week. It may involve the continued development of information as we've used thus far to send out. The information I sent out on the convention center came out of last year's work, needs updating. There's, and again, kind of a good analysis of all the data sources. And then I think there's data from the different participants in here, particularly as it relates to the contracts, the Convention and Visitors Corporation, the Events Committee, there are different players in this, if you will, that also we could solicit information from that might be helpful to understanding from their side the benefit part of it. Is really kind of, and then understanding their budgets from their audits and from what has been submitted, so that we have a sense of that we know that people have been asked to make pilots, and that those pilots, I guess in the case of what the convention center paid was an approximation of what property tax would be.
Exactly right, off of an assumed assessed value.
Assumed assessed value.
Yep.
And then the amount from the Convention and Visitors Corporation, I think, was an amount. I'm not sure it was tied to any. Not that that's bad. But that it was tied to anything like property tax. Because they don't have property, so there's really not a good way to understand what it is that they might be able to do. Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Did you say something? I'm sorry. So we will continue to develop those. Now, the survey of other cities.
Before you move on, can I ask?
Yes.
So this sheet,
Yes.
if it hasn't been done already, I would love to know that finance signs off on these numbers. I'm not sure where they came from.
I'm not either.
And I know about a year ago when I attempted to do this same sort of work, it took a couple months and 6 or 7 people involved to make sure that it was right. So I want to make sure that we know that this chart is the numbers in it are signed off on by finance.
Is that last year's data?
That's last year's data.
We can just get it updated.
Yes.
That was the budget for 2018, not the actual.
It was the budget. So we should have some actual, again, there should be, I don't know whether this is sourced as audit, Talia.
It looks like she may have pulled it from budget book materials.
Yes,
But, do you want budget or you want actual or both?
yes.
Keep that if you want.
I've got it.
Okay, I figured you did.
I've got it.
So, and again, not that you're sitting around, you are enjoying the acceleration probably more than almost anyone in this room. So I am trying to be mindful of the burden that you're having. If there's some way that we can do anything that would be helpful in gathering that information.
We can do it, we got it.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
No worries.
Thank you. That will be very helpful. As we look at revenue sources, and Margaret, I know we talked about looking at the legal underpinnings for some of the revenue sources and what would be necessary if we were going to recommend any changes or increases in those, or contractual changes, I guess, because with the different agencies that receive the funding, what's been done has been done voluntarily, because in some cases it has to be. For example, the debt service, they're always going to be fully obligated. The revenues from the hotel motel tax are always going to be fully obligated to debt service, as I understand it.
For the most part, yes.
For the most part.
There 3% of the hotel occupancy tax goes to debt service on the convention center, and then the other 3% gets divided into different areas.
So their payment is voluntary in terms of the convention center. Their payment is voluntary, an approximation of the tax that would be paid, but it is not a contractual or budgetary obligation for them to do that at this point.
I'm not following the question. Who is
I'm sorry.
who's them?
I'm sorry. Them to be the convention center, the MCC, paying the $12.5 million.
We have an
That was
agreement in place.
there's an agreement in place.
Is an agreement in place
Yes.
that would be enforceable?
That, yes.
Nothing like an on-the-fly legal
Can I make a
opinion, but,
suggestion?
sorry. Yes, sir.
So what we need is, on this chart, is we need it footnoted by bucket of money.
Yes.
So it's written down below. And I know there's a notes section that's just got a couple word summary, but it needs to be, if we're going to be useful about this, we need it footnoted with the allowed use and of the bucket of money with references to applicable state or local law, so somebody could look it up. Because what we quickly find is that most of the buckets are unavailable for any use, but it's really the footnoting of the allowed use of each pile of money that drives the conversation that the commission wants to have.
That's right.
I think the version we had last year had that column on it.
I know it's somewhere,
It was somewhere, but I couldn't find it.
but I think it needs to be more than just a couple word summary.
Yes.
It's got to be something.
Code
that-
sites or whatever.
Yeah.
Yes. So there, in Emily's memo again,
Is this what, did y'all get a copy of this last year? Okay.
Last year.
I've printed out extra copies of that if anyone wants
Okay.
a copy of it.
Maybe you
Say,
could
give it to us
get a copy
again.
and send it back out to everybody.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah.
I've-
Is that on the website too?
I couldn't find it if it did. Maybe I'm just not, I don't think it made it to the website, so.
pass those around.
In the long run, I think that's important to get out in
Yes,
the public
right.
because it shows the extreme limitations.
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark.
This chart could probably use kind of some beefing up, some information in there.
As he looks over at the person who hopefully has the information to do it. We also can look at and we also need to include dollar amounts, if we can, to what's produced in terms of revenue. Would be additional columns. And what it's done over the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, one of the concerns, we all think tourism's great and doing great and all, but we don't know that that goose isn't going to keep laying those eggs forever. So how do you deal with projections on this as you think about what you're going to do with the funds? Whether you need to think of part of it as recurring and part of it is essentially non-recurring until it proves itself to be so recurring that you don't have to worry about it anymore. That's kind of one of the problems that, at least I've experienced in budgeting in the past, in prior lives.
If I may
Yes, sir.
continue. And in particular, then this chart of money
Yes,
needs to have the same categories on it as this chart.
correct. Yes, that's correct. We need to all foot together.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. I wasn't sure where those numbers came from.
All right. I know we lose quorum at 5 o'clock, so I'm going to continue to kind of press on if that's all right. No, actually, you will not affect the quorum, sir.
I'll leave now.
Well, that's okay. We value your input and participation. And I will try not to let these meetings go on for forever, if that's all right with everybody. So I don't know if anyone had the chance, we did send out the last year's report, and I spent the weekend in between watching some really good football games, going back through and the individual recommendations. A number of these are really, in the budget instructions, the mayor and says for people to go back and re-examine the recommendations of the commission. A number of them came from departments in the process this last year. And there are some that I don't know what happened to them. And maybe that's, so maybe what, and I don't know if you've done this or whether we should do it, maybe we should do is just make parse these out, if you will, by what it seems to be which department, because it's pretty obvious which one is involved in individual submissions, and send them back to them and say, hey, do you have an update? On what that is. Again, trying to be mindful, though, of your
No, I appreciate that.
timeline.
So yes, per the budget instructions, we asked all the departments to go back through. As we discussed in the first meeting, some of the feedback was the timing when some of the report came out didn't really allow for implementation in the budget cycle. There's also quite a few recommendations that I'd say are completely right, but the how you do them, I think, still very much needs to get fleshed out. Like, I think there's one around procurement, for example, and aligning to best practices.
What's that mean?
Exactly. I think that is I think it's an interesting one, and we've discussed in that first meeting, maybe even potentially work that this group could take on after this first cycle of work. So Emily had said there were 5 things that she saw as being implemented and was going to bring that to this meeting. I'm happy to follow up with her and work with her on that to get those noted. And then, I think the rest is all kind of fodder right now for us to all to parse through. Exactly.
Well, again, I want to be mindful of not just kind of, again, covering up and creating make work for people at a time when they have really a lot of work to do, given the time frame that you've got for them. But there do seem to be some, and given the times of wasting, I would say by next week, by next meeting, certainly, we need to decide what those are. I will take a cut at it and kind of divide them up and circulate them to the commission. I'm looking to my legal advisor to tell me when we start crossing the lines, as long as they are.
If you want to send documents to go out to the full board, send them to Danielle, and then she can distribute documents.
And then responses to those documents come back to Danielle. Okay. And so we don't have to wait for a meeting for that to occur, correct? Because we would be approving that action to take place in the interim between this meeting and the next meeting.
Okay, that's fine.
You're looking
sorry, I'm
to
just trying to-
prioritize?
I'm just trying to make sure I just want to keep things
That'll be fine.
between
I
the
think
lines.
because of the very quick time deadline we're talking about, I think you have to prioritize. And I think, if you're going to take a first crack at it, you may want to send it out
I will do that.
to Danielle and see what people think, and then we meet in 2 weeks,
Right.
come back ready to go. Because this group, at least on this budget cycle, does not have a lot of time.
Right. Well, if, okay, I will do that. I will have that out this week.
And let me clarify.
yes.
So what you're doing is you're taking certain sections and you're saying,
Well,
this
yeah.
is your section and this is your section?
No, I was just gonna go take a crack at, I'm gonna throw it out by department, because I think there's some of the ones, and again, we need to talk to Emily about the ones that she believes actually bore fruit. Both in the narrative section in the front, and then in kind of the public submissions in the next section. The third section reflects just kind of, it reflects what came into the website. And there was some repetitiveness there, so, again, the idea would be to pull this down to kind of what seems to be the important few, to be able to be then sent out to the agencies by us, so that it could be at least included in their thought process for the budget process that they're in the midst of, or at least a response. This seemed like a good idea. Gee, what would it, is that feasible? Because that's part of really the question, is whether some of these are also feasible, or just so general as we need to fix procurement kind of a comment that it requires a longer term additional study than what this would be able to do. Okay? Because there were some of the ones back here in the narrative too that again seemed ones that I thought were highlighted enough to be able to deal with. So anyway, okay, I'll take a cut.
Mr. Chairman, what you might want to just take a cut at it, and then obviously everybody else has these things, and then if somebody wants to add something by
Yes.
looking at it, they can send it back through this process back to you.
And then you'll be the one making the
Correct.
decision on the priority, because you
Yeah.
can't take a vote via
Correct.
email.
That's right. So if you object, you can beat me up at the next meeting. All right. With that, we have come to the end of the agenda. Is there any other business or comments or direction from anyone in the group?
You actually run a pretty tight meeting. Congratulations.
Have you thought about being vice mayor?
I thought about it, and I rejected it. With that, I will accept
during the middle of the year.
I will accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye. We are adjourned. Thank you very
We got
much.
your back, too.
Thank you.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information about this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.